Before I tell you what my mother said to me the night she threw me out of her house, take 2 seconds to subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single comment because stories like mine remind people they're not alone. And trust me, by the end of this story, you're going to understand why I stayed silent for so many years. I'm 34 years old now, but there are still nights when I hear my mom's voice in my head like it happened yesterday. Don't ever come back. Not leave for a while. Not we need space. She looked me straight in the eyes and told me never to come back again. And the worst part? She said it while standing right beside my younger sister, Emily, the same sister who had spent years quietly destroying my life while pretending to be the perfect daughter. Growing up, my mom treated Emily like she could do no wrong. If Emily forgot to do something, it was an accident if I made one tiny mistake. Suddenly I was selfish, difficult, dramatic. I spent most of my life trying to earn love that should have been given freely. Even after Dad died, I stayed close to my family. I helped Mom pay bills when she struggled. I drove her to doctor appointments. I skipped vacations to help keep the house running. Emily? She showed up for birthdays and selfies. But somehow, she was still the favorite. I kept telling myself Mom would eventually see the truth. That one day, she'd realize who was actually there for her. I was wrong, because 3 months ago, my entire family sat in that living room believing I had betrayed my own mother. And Emily stood there crying fake tears while everybody blamed me for something I didn't do. And when I finally realized my mother had already chosen her side, I decided I was done protecting the secrets that could destroy my sister's entire life. The night my mom threw me out started with a phone call that honestly made no sense. She called me screaming before I could even say hello. "How could you do this to your sister?" she yelled. At first, I thought somebody had gotten hurt. I remember pulling my car over because her voice sounded hysterical. "Mom, slow down. What are you talking about?" Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "Emily told me everything." That sentence alone was enough to make my chest tighten. Because every time Emily said everything, it usually meant she had invented a brand new version of reality where she was the victim and I was the villain. When I got to Mom's house, Emily was already there crying on the couch like she belonged in some bad soap opera. Her husband Mark stood behind her looking uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact with me the entire time. The second I walked in, Mom pointed toward the door and shouted, "I can't even look at you right now." I was completely confused. Then Emily finally said it. "She told Mark about my past," she whispered while fake crying. She wanted to ruin my marriage. I just stared at her, because technically, I did know something from Emily's past, something her husband didn't know, but I had never told him. Not once. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but Emily cut me off immediately. "You've always been jealous of me," she said. "Ever since we were kids." Jealous? That word almost made me laugh. This was the same woman who stole money from Mom's purse in high school and blamed me for it. The same woman who flirted with my ex-boyfriend while we were still together. But none of that mattered to Mom. She believed every word Emily said without even asking me for my side. Then Mom looked at me with pure disgust and said that sentence that shattered something inside me forever. "If your father were alive, he'd be ashamed of you." That broke me, because my father was the only person in that family who ever truly saw Emily for who she really was. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Emily wasn't afraid of me exposing her. She was terrified I would finally tell Mom the truth about what really happened the week Dad died. The second my mom mentioned Dad, something inside me snapped. For years, I had protected Emily because Dad asked me to before he died. I was 19 when he sat beside me in his hospital room. Weak from cancer, barely able to speak above a whisper. He grabbed my hand and said, "Take care of your sister. She makes bad choices when she's scared." Back then, I thought he meant normal mistakes. I had no idea how far Emily would eventually go. Standing in Mom's living room that night, watching Emily fake cry while Mom treated me like garbage, I realized I had sacrificed half my life, protecting someone who would destroy mine without hesitation. So for the first time ever, I stopped protecting her. I looked directly at Emily and said, "Do you really want me to tell everybody what happened the week Dad died?" Her face changed instantly. The tears stopped. Her entire body froze. Even her husband noticed it. "Emily?" Mark asked quietly, but she wouldn't look at him. Mom crossed her arms. What is she talking about? I could feel my heart pounding so hard it hurt, because once I said it out loud, there was no taking it back. "You remember Dad's emergency surgery?" I asked Mom. "The day you thought the hospital lost $15,000 from his account?" Mom's expression shifted immediately. Of course she remembered. That money disappeared right before Dad died, and the loss nearly destroyed her financially. For years, Mom believed the hospital made some kind of mistake, but Dad knew exactly where the money went. And so did I. Emily suddenly stood up. "Stop talking!" Her voice sounded different now. Nervous, sharp. But I was done staying quiet. I looked straight at Mark. "She stole it," I said. The room went completely silent. Mom blinked at me like she physically couldn't process the words. I kept going before Emily could interrupt me again. "Dad caught her gambling online," I said. "She was drowning in debt. And she took the money while he was in surgery because she thought nobody would notice." Mark slowly stepped away from Emily like he didn't even recognize her anymore. And then I said the one thing that finally destroyed the perfect image my sister spent years building. "Dad made me promise not to tell Mom because he was afraid the stress would kill her too." For a few seconds, nobody said a word. My mom just stood there staring at Emily like the ground beneath her had disappeared. And honestly, that was the first time in my entire life I saw my sister without her mask. No fake tears. No innocent little act. No perfect daughter performance. Just panic. "Mom, she's lying," Emily suddenly screamed. But her voice was shaking too hard now. Then Mark quietly asked the question that changed everything. "Is it true?" Emily looked at him and stayed silent. That silence said more than any confession ever could. My mom slowly sat down on the couch like all the strength had left her body. "Emily," she whispered, "please tell me you didn't do that to your father." And that's when Emily completely broke. She started crying hysterically, saying she was scared, drowning in debt, and thought she could pay the money back before anyone noticed. But she never did. Dad died carrying that secret to protect her, and I carried it for 15 years because I thought keeping the family together mattered more than my own pain. I was wrong. Mark grabbed his keys and walked straight out the front door without saying another word. Mom looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "Why didn't you tell me?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I quietly said, "Because Dad asked me to protect her, and because I spent my whole life trying to protect you too." That night, I left the house anyway, but this time I walked out with peace instead of guilt. 3 weeks later, Mom showed up at my apartment crying harder than I had ever seen before. She apologized for everything. For the favoritism, for never listening, for choosing Emily over me. And for the first time since I was a little girl, I finally felt seen. So, if you're watching this while carrying years of silence just to keep toxic people comfortable, please remember this. Protecting the truth sometimes destroys you more than revealing it ever will.